Well, hello, hello. Have you ever created something, had it become a bestseller, thought that's it, I've made it, and then watched as your bestseller just slowly died, or just the sales just switched off overnight, and then all you've had was crickets? Yeah, me too. And it sucks. So I thought we'd talk about it today, because it seems like such a happy topic. But to be fair, if you make and sell things online, this is going to happen to you at some point if it hasn't already. So we may as well talk about it, just so that we, to remind each other that we are not on our own, if nothing else. But first, before we jump into that, sorry, bit of fluff that I was just pointing at you. Get off. I'm Kim. I waffle a lot. This is the Coffee and Craft podcast. We chat. I chat. I drink coffee. And I sometimes craft, and the idea is that I keep you company while you work or craft, hence the coffee and craft. And if you're not new here, then this nonsense is just, it's not new. You're well used to it by now. Okay, so why do they stop selling? Well, let's have a look at my notes because I can't remember. Oh yes, trends shift. Don't they just? And I would argue that over the last few years, trends have started shifting so much faster. One of the biggest bestsellers that I've had in my shop had a 2-year run, which is about average, or was about average, but I don't know if it is now. I think that trends tend to come and go and peak and trough and just, boom, by the time you've just realised what it is, it's already gone. But back then, my biggest seller was festival gear, and it was wonderful. It was a unicorn product in that there was high demand and very low competition. It was so sweet until it wasn't anymore. And that was a word that went through my head I cannot say because it's very sweary. It was a mix of things that killed that particular thing off. Etsy brought in their own changes which halved my customer base because Etsy aren't Etsy unless they're tweaking something. There were more people jumping on the platform doing similar things because they saw how popular these things were selling, which is always the case. There's always going to be copycats. And then, and this was the nail in the coffin, the high street caught up. And I've said this 1,000 times, if you're competing with the high street, you're not competing, you've already lost. So of course, once they came in with their versions that they could sell at a fraction of the cost, it was over. So that was my first experience with having a bestseller die on its arse, and I can say from first-hand experience it was not fun, but I did learn a ton from it. And I've had bestsellers since, not quite as big as that. I started with that example because it was the big one, but I've had other versions of that where I've had bestsellers and they've reached their natural peak and died off, and it's just been on a smaller scale. So trends shifting, that is one of the main reasons why a bestseller might stop selling. I mean, customer tastes, they just change, and we've talked recently about buyer behaviour and how that's constantly evolving, and we are currently in this huge cultural shift online. It's kind of scary, so I don't try to look at it too much because otherwise I'm just like, ugh. But it's a thing. And I've already touched on this with that last point, but oversaturation of niches, that will often may not kill off a bestseller, but it will certainly slow down its progress. People are always on the lookout for the next thing, for the next trend. And if they notice that something is doing well in someone's shop, eventually people will sort of jump on the bandwagon. But it's not just people, as I said, the high street. If something is a big enough trend that lasts for a long enough time for them to do their own research and get their manufacturers to start doing their thing, they will also jump on board. And I've actually even got that link down here, competitors offering similar products, either better, offering more value, or at a lower price. That's also a thing. It's just, that's a natural part of it. So if you do find yourself with a unicorn product, make the most of it, because that will pass. It unfortunately always does. Every item that you sell in your shop will have its own shelf life. Every trend, I'm not just talking about trends, but I will say that a lot in this video, because a lot of what we do in our businesses will revolve around a trend of some description. But also trends as in seasonal trends, like seasonality has an impact as well. You could sell something that will be picked up at a certain time of year or a certain season, and it will find its feet and then it will taper off. And then you might think, oh, well, this will pick up again the next time the season or the next time this time of year rolls around, and then it does, and then it doesn't sell. And you think, well, what's changed? Going right back to the beginning again, people, buyer behaviour, customer tastes, sometimes it changes within months, let alone a year. So those are some reasons why bestsellers will die out eventually. On to the important topic, and I think why you're really here, is what do you do then when you've identified that one of your bestsellers is starting to die on its arse a bit? Well, don't immediately think that it's the product that's the issue, because it might not be. I'm going to give you some tips, the things that you can try, so things that I have tried in the past, and some of them have worked. It just, as I say, it depends on the product, it depends on the platform, and that's what I want to talk about first before I jump into this next bit. Sometimes a product isn't dying on its arse, as I say, it's actually just that it's not doing well on a particular platform. And I've mentioned recently that for me at least, Etsy seems to be a place where I can sell my lower ticket items pretty well, but then the higher ticket items that you see behind you, like project bags and what have you, they don't do so well on Etsy. They do better on my website. Now, if I only sold on Etsy, it would be very tempting to think that these items just weren't trend anymore, people didn't want them, and just not to bother with them. But these are some of my best sellers, just not on this particular platform. And this is why sometimes it's good to look critically, not just at your products, but your products on a particular platform, and also why you shouldn't just sell on one platform as well. Because what works on one platform might be a completely different story on another. So just bear that in mind. And if you are selling on multiple platforms, compare your sales for that item on each one. And if it's slowly dying on all platforms, well, that's fair enough, because then you've got a bit more data to base a decision on. But if it's selling on one platform or others and not on another, it could be that the one that it's not selling on is just attracting a different kind of customer now. Etsy being a prime example of this. Okay, so now that I've mentioned that, because that's always worth bearing in mind, I'm going to have to rely on my notes so much today because I'm all over the shop. Right, okay, the first idea to adapt and pivot your items is to give your bestseller a revamp, and I've done this myself multiple times. Admittedly, it's easier with some products than it is with others. I sell stick and stitch embroidery designs, and I do find it a lot easier to do with those because I only print them out as I make a sale. And if I want to tweak them or improve them, then it means getting into Procreate and tweaking the designs there, and then I can print them off. And I think the most recent example of me doing this would have been my autumn stick and stitch patches. If I lean over here, there you go. This was the old stick and stitch patch. I'm going to try and do some editing here, and then here is the new recent one. Very similar, but the new designs are easier to actually stitch up, and I think the designs are a lot better, and they even include my, I was going to say trademark mushroom. It's not a trademark mushroom. I stitch up a particular mushroom design of my own on my project bags and other things, and it includes that as a stick and stitch patch now, is what I'm trying to say. i.e., this is a way that I can give an existing product a bit of a revamp so that it offers customers a bit more value and hopefully keeps it nice and fresh. There are other ways that you can give your products a revamp. Colour. Changing colour options is probably one of the most versatile and easiest ones to do. If you can offer personalisation, always a good thing. And materials. I did that recently. I'm slowly sort of merging embroidery with clay. It's a bit different, but that's the whole point. And I have nothing to show you here either because I recently listed some and they've sold. I'll put a picture here. There you go, some clay ornaments, except the snowflakes are embroidered. What can I say? I like to make things difficult for myself, but it was a lot of fun and they will be coming back to the shop soon. Another way that you can adapt your items, and I mentioned this in my last video, but you can bundle them together or you can make gift sets out of them. I don't have any of this in my shop at the moment. I am working on it. But if you do sell items that can be bundled together, that's another way of offering more value to your customer and can breathe some new life into a product that's not doing so well. You always want to be looking out for fresh trends, but there's always a but, isn't there? I would highly recommend that you don't go chasing the flash in the pan trends, because otherwise all you'll be doing is spending all of your time and energy just chasing trends, and it's too exhausting and they move too fast. You want to be keeping an eye out for the things that stick around a little bit. They're not even trends so much, they're more themes, aesthetics. You want to keep your eyes on what's coming up, what existing aesthetic is getting a new name this time. I mean, you'll often see 70s fashion, for example. How many times has that been on trend? I personally would argue that it's never gonna go out of trend. It became a trend initially in the 70s when it was invented, and it's just never gone away. It just has waves of when it, it's really trendy, not so trendy, but it will never go away. Another way would be to refresh your branding, because sometimes it might not be our products that are going out of fashion or out of trend or not necessarily being forgotten, but it's because our branding and our messaging is getting a little bit stale. One way I used to do this, I used to have a store banner for Etsy, just a standard one, and because it was a branch with beech tree leaves that I'd embroidered on the branch, it made sense to me to have seasonal variations of this branch, because trees, they lose their leaves and get them again. Sorry guys, I'm getting a bit tired. I don't know if you'd noticed. So yeah, for example, the summer one was a branch full of green leaves, and then the autumn one I changed the leaf colours so that they looked a bit brown, and then I have leaves blowing off into the distance. I even had a Halloween themed one where there were cobwebs hanging off the tree branch. It's just a way of injecting a little bit of something to your existing branding. You don't have to do that. That was just one creative way that I came up with to get the most out of my my branding artwork, I guess. And I don't have that banner anymore, but now that I've been talking about it, I kind of miss them. Might have to return to that and do it again. But not today, Kim. You have too much to do. Focus. Product photos. Yes, I know it's really annoying when you have people like me rocking up and saying you can tweak your photographs, but it does work. It does work. My photographs at the moment are pretty blah. I'm not a big fan of them. Etsy seems to like them. They're just the product, plain white background, but there's just nothing that makes them stand out or pop out from everybody else on the page. So I personally think that my images are quite easy to scroll past. That needs to have a little something. I don't know what that is. But yes, product photos. That could be worth a try. And if we're talking about bestsellers that used to sell well that aren't anymore, we're not even talking about tweaking all of your product images, maybe just that one. Why do I do this to myself? I write down things that admittedly are good ideas, and then it just reminds me of all of the things that I'm not doing. So I feel like a massive hypocrite sitting in front of you going, you can try this. And I'm like, but I'm not. Listen, I'm doing the best I can. Does your social media engagement need a little TLC? Yes. Have you stopped talking to people? Yes. If so, re-engage your customers. And this, I'm laughing because this is the point in the video that I'm using, even though it's got nothing to do with this, to let everybody know that the Instagram account that I started earlier this year for this channel, and it was called It's Kim Bliss, don't bother going to look for it because I have deleted it. You can see why I was laughing now. Yeah, it turns out having more than one Instagram account is just one thing too many. And as many of you know, I have recently started homeschooling, so I don't have as much time to spend on my business as I once did. So things are going to have to change. Some things are going to have to be let go of, and that is the first casualty. I'm calling it. So yes, but apart from that, it is a good idea to re-engage on social media, and then we shall move on. Okay, so those are all of the little tips and ideas that I can think of that could help breathe some life into a dying product or a dying bestseller. I have used these at various points in my self-employed career, and I've had success with each and every single one at different times, which is why I'm offering them up to you. However, what happens if you try these, or if you have already tried these and they're just not working? It's just, there is no life in the bestseller, the previous bestseller. It is, then you have to let it go. And that sucks, especially if you're really proud of it. I mean, you don't have to let it go, but then you do actually have to be okay with it just sitting there. So if you don't like it sitting there, looking at you and reminding you that it once was a bestseller but is now no more, then it needs to go. If you have stock that you need to shift, then you can run a sale. Sale? Yes, sale. You can run a sale and let people know that you are going to be retiring said product and that this is their last chance to get it. And then once that decision has been made and the job has been done, then moving forward it is time to experiment with new products, new listings, and try and find that next bestseller. And you will find that this happens regularly in your years as you go on running your business. It's just part of it, and sometimes it really sucks, but once you get used to it, it gets easier. You start feeling less attached to certain products, and you find it easier to let them go. I really struggled with that at one point, whereas now I'm like, this isn't working, tried it, it had its day, next. So I would be interested to know if you yourself have been in this situation before, and did I forget anything? Do you have any tips for people who are in this boat at the moment, because it's a bit of a crappy boat to be in, let's be brutally honest. Come and let me know in the comments and we will keep the conversation going there. And if I don't speak to you before then, I will see you again next week. Ciao.